What's going on, folks? My name's Dave McRae. So in this video, I'm finally going to give you my thoughts on Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. I know, I'm really late to the party on this, and most of you probably don't give a shit anymore. I understand it's all Barbenheimer right now, but you know what? Hey, Harrison Ford's my favorite actor of all time. Indiana Jones is one of my favorite movie franchises of all time. I've got to give you my thoughts on this. And I know a lot of you, well, maybe not a lot of you, but at least some of you have been wondering my thoughts on this movie. So grab some popcorn, grab some alcohol, because you might need it, and let's dive in, okay? So let's start here. So a few weeks ago, I uploaded a video where I gave my thoughts on a lot of the reviews that were coming out in regards to the Dial of Destiny from Cannes, the Cannes Film Festival, which of course is where the Dial of Destiny premiered. And I made a video talking about sort of my frustration with a lot of the reviews I was reading and some of the videos I was watching from people that I don't quite think either had incredibly unrealistic expectations, which is probably the case, or I just are missing the point. I don't understand sometimes why people have these expectations. And that's not me saying that the expectations they have are not good ones and that are not, part of an appropriate level of standards and that we should strive for that. That's not what I'm saying. I guess I'm just trying to be realistic of where we are in terms of blockbuster films, how films are made nowadays, all that kind of stuff. And so I said, the analogy I used was this. I said, look, if I can go see Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny and walk out of the theater and think to myself, you know what? That was all right. That wasn't bad. Then it's a win. It's a win. My expectations are not, it has to be like Raiders of the Lost Ark or Temple of Doom or Last Crusade, because it can't be. We don't make movies the same way anymore. The logistics of the filmmaking process is not the same anymore. Yes, we use a lot of CG and a lot of green screen and all that kind of stuff. And you'd be surprised actually how many practical effects are used on the Dial of Destiny and, locations and sets and all that kind of stuff. But are there, is there CG? Is there some green screen? Yes, absolutely. More so today than there's ever been, certainly with the other films in the 80s. But the process has changed. How we make movies has changed. So I didn't go into that expecting to see the nitty, gritty, grimy, sort of all practical, very much like Raiders was. That would have been great. But I knew I wasn't going to get it. So I just was hoping for some sort of balance, right? Some sort of balance that would have been, effective. And I think we got that, at least more so than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And so again, the analogy that I used is, my expectations are, it's like going to see your favorite band on their farewell tour. I said this in the previous video that I uploaded a few weeks ago. Take AC/DC, my favorite rock band of all time. Well, Brian Johnson, iconic, legendary frontman for AC/DC, is 4 or 5. He's in his 70s, for God's sakes. And, that would be like me going to see a farewell tour of AC/DC and walking away going, well, it's no Back in Black, I'll tell you that. It's like, well, why would that be my expectation? He's 75. He can't hit those notes anymore. What? If that's your expectation, well, of course you're going to come out of there completely miserable and upset, right? But ask yourself, why are you going, right? They're old. They can't hit the same things they used to. So why are you going? You're going because they're legendary. You're going for the nostalgia, right? You're going for those childhood or teenager or early 20s, whatever, however old you are, feelings, right? That's what you're going for. And you hope they put on a good show. And if you can walk away going, you know what? That was a good show. I enjoyed that. Then it's a win, as far as I'm concerned. And that's where my expectations were. It's not me lowering my standards. It's me having realistic expectations based on where we are and what we usually get from these blockbuster legacy sequels. And so, I walked away from the Dial of Destiny quite enjoying the film. It's not as good as Raiders, Temple, or Last Crusade, but it doesn't need to be. It just needs to be good. It was a good movie. I enjoyed that. It was fun to see Brian Johnson on stage again, a la Harrison Ford in the whip and hat again, right? It was fun to see, the logo again. And it was fun to see, hear that music again. And they put on a good show. And The Dial of Destiny is directed by James Mangold, right? Copland, Walk the Line, Ford v Ferrari, Logan, 310 to Yuma, Identity. The hyperbolic thumbnails from these culture war YouTube channels, it's awful, dumpster fire, horrible, woke bullshit. It's like, oh, for fuck's sakes. Like, I knew that was nothing but hyperbolic nonsense the second I saw these things being recommended to me. It's James Mangold. That the chances of the movie being a complete and utter catastrophic disaster of epic proportions is highly unlikely. That doesn't mean you're going to like the movie, but, that level of, it was the worst movie. It's like, come on, man. It was not. Anybody who thinks this is one of the worst movies ever made has never seen a dumpster fire movie in their life. Okay? Just saying that. It wasn't one of the worst movies of all time. Not at all. Not at all. Okay? So now that that's out of the way and where I was sort of going into this, let me dive into the movie a little bit here. So I thought the opening of the film, the train sequence, the opening was fantastic. And I don't know what crack some people are smoking, but I thought the de-aging was fantastic. Yes, I can tell he's de-aged and certain moments are a little better than others, but overall, in terms of the de-aging process and not deep faking, because deep faking is different, right? Deep faking is a different technology. In terms of the de-aging, it's some of the best I've ever seen, because you're not de-aging somebody like, 5 years. You're de-aging somebody a generation. It's like, whoa. When that thing came off and he started to move around like this, and I was like, whoa, I even said to my girlfriend, I'm like, wow, that's really good. Yes, I can tell, but it's good enough that I'm able to immediately suspend my disbelief without issues. Now, again, if you're somebody that it really rubbed you the wrong way, that's fair. That's totally fair. And that was your real experience and it wasn't good enough for you. Okay, that's fine. Maybe you're very used to the deepfake shit. I don't know, which generally is more convincing. Maybe fair enough. But as far as de-aging, like think of the de-aging in Dial of Destiny and think of the de-aging Mark Hamill stuff at the end of season 2 of The Mandalorian. When he first comes in and he takes off the hood and he's like, come on, man. It's like fucking night and day. The de-aging on Ford I thought was spectacular. And that, when he's in the car and he's got the helmet on and everything and he's looking, it's like, what the fuck? I'm sitting there and I'm going, I feel like I'm watching some Indiana Jones movie that was made in like 1991. Like it was that good. Like I kid you not. I thought it was that good. Yes, again, there were certain moments that was like, okay, again, but it to me, there was never a moment where I was like, I'm out. I'm out. No, I don't understand what those people wanted. I don't know. Maybe the deep fake. I don't know. But I thought the de-aging was the best de-aging I've ever seen. The best de-aging I've ever seen. And the whole opening was great. Like just very much that old school Indiana Jones. And, and look, a lot of that probably was because he looked younger. So it absolutely felt like an old school Indiana Jones movie. No doubt about it. 100%. The only thing I will say, and I'm surprised they didn't do this because I think the technology exists, maybe it doesn't, was they didn't de-age his voice. I think maybe that, and I don't want to speak for anybody, because obviously if you didn't like the physical de-aging thing, that's fair. If it didn't work for you, maybe. But I wonder if it would have worked better for those who weren't crazy on it if he sounded younger. Because there were many moments where he sounded like 80-year-old Harrison Ford. And it was kind of like, Even my girlfriend was like, yeah, that's a little kind of okay. And there's certain moments where it comes across okay because he raises his voice and he sounds like, the younger Jones. But yeah, there were definitely a few times where I was like, I would have, I don't know if the technology exists. I'd have to look into it. But I would have tried to do something with the voice. maybe they did and it just wasn't believable. And it was just like, listen, we tried it, but it sounds really weird and bad. And we're just going to stick with his older voice because we'd rather have his older voice and it sound clean than have this younger processed voice and it sound really weird. So maybe that's the case. I don't know. But I will say that was a little strange. But again, the opening was so effective, and James Mangold is so great with directing action and action sequences and set pieces that I was just really into it. I thought it was fantastic. We jumped to 1969, of course, and if you've seen the movie, you know how it all plays out. So let me just tackle this part of the story here. I know there's a lot of people that feel that Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is a depressing film. It's a depressing film. It's sad because, why does Hollywood have to take our aging heroes and turn them into grumpy old men and, all that kind of stuff. And look, I mean, there's a fair point to be made there. Okay. There's a fair point to be made there, but let's look at this as objectively as we possibly can. Could they have written a story that was more joyful, upbeat, classic indie, Raiders, Last Crusade? Sure. I'm sure they could have done that. They would have had their work cut out for them because they would have had to have figured out a way to do that with an 80-year-old Indiana Jones. Now remember, when I say 80-year-old Indiana Jones, I'm talking about his actual age. I know, again, he's 70 in the movie, but, a 79-year-old Harrison Ford, because I believe he was 79 when he made the movie. And having that same swashbuckling energy from your lead character at his age, it's tricky. It's tricky to make it believable. Okay, it's not that it's impossible, but it's tricky to make it believable because some people even found some of the things that he was doing in this movie a little, okay, I guess I'll buy it. You know what I'm saying? So imagine if you had a completely different, story and theme and energy to the film, very much like the originals. It's a bit tricky. Also, too, from a story character perspective, and I've listened to James Mangold and Harrison Ford talk about this in interviews, is that Harrison Ford wasn't completely satisfied with Skull, and he wanted to revisit the character, but he's 15 years older, at a different stage of his life. And he says, I'm paraphrasing, but he's not wrong when he says this. When these stories are done right, like take a look at Logan, right? Now, Logan's not nearly as old as Harrison Ford, but take a look at Logan, right? And when stories are done right about aging heroes, at the end, all that kind of stuff, it can be very compelling because the older we get, and maybe, not that I'm old, but I'm 44, and there's lots of things that I think about in my life now, certain regrets maybe, or certain things that I have, even at 44, right? Maybe, I don't know, it can be a very compelling character study and arc for a character to revisit somebody who was so confident and so adventurous and so action-oriented and so agile and with it and clear and strong, and all that kind of stuff, to see him or her at a stage of his life where that's been taken away. And I know that can be depressing for some. It certainly can, because we're used to the Indiana Jones movies being joyful and bombastic and things like that. But if you're going to make an Indiana Jones movie at this stage of his life, it's one of the only things you can do. And then those who say, well, then just don't make an Indiana Jones movie. Fair enough. That absolutely fair. If you don't like this part, or this story, I should say, if you think they should never have made this movie because really, what else are we going to... That's totally fair. And if you want to say, no, listen, Indiana Jones is Raiders, Temple, Last Crusade, that's it. That's totally fair. And there's a gigantic argument to be made for that, 100%. But that doesn't mean these types of stories cannot be compelling when they're told really well. And I found this story interesting. It was a different... we're seeing him in a different place. I didn't find the movie sad, but certainly he's in a sadder place than he's ever been. And it's interesting to see this hero that's been so strong in a place where we see him in 1969. And to see that juxtaposition between 1944, I think it was, in terms of the opening, to see that, that strong, wild, crazy sort of, adventurous Indiana Jones hopping on a train, running through a train, punching Nazis, whips and, I was gonna say whips and chains. That's a different Indiana Jones, whips and all that kind of stuff. And to jump from that, to cut from that to 1969, where he's basically a fish out of water. And something that, Harrison Ford said that I absolutely agree with here, which I don't agree with those who say that this doesn't make any sense at all. So it's 1969 and Indiana Jones is, look, you could write a story. Somebody said to me, yeah, but he's a legend. He'd be a legend in 1969 and his class would be full and people would, be knocking at the door trying to get into his class because he's Henry Jones Jr., the legend and all. Fair enough. You could have written it that way. But as Harrison Ford says, and I like this because this, let's be honest, this is kind of more realistic in, a lot of ways. It's 1969. And a lot of these college students that are in his class, were born in like 1952 or 1, or 53. And they might know who he is, but they don't care because, it's the 60s, the Beatles, Elvis Presley, the sexual revolution, the moon landing. There's so many distractions now, television, movies, entertainment. There's so many distractions now in the 60s, almost the 70s, because it's 1969, that there weren't in the 30s and the 40s when he was really doing his thing. And so seeing kids sitting there kind of, distracted, not really, that's totally believable. 100% that's believable, right? He's a legend, but they're like, yeah, well, oh, okay. Because they got no reference. They don't understand that. You know what I mean? So you could write it the other way, but him being in a place where he's kind of a relic himself in a lot of ways and underappreciated and undervalued because of all the other distractions that are going on in 1969 and up to that point is totally believable. It does like those that say that doesn't make any sense, I absolutely disagree with you on that. I think it makes perfect sense. Now, you can do it the other way, sure, but to do it this way makes sense and totally believable. It's properly motivated 100%. So I actually kind of like that, and then of course they wheel the TV in and he's teaching and he's like, oh, okay, so I found it interesting to see this part of Indiana Jones. Again, we saw a different side to him in Last Crusade when we introduced his father. We see a little bit of a different side to him in Crystal Skull when, we're introduced to his son. And now we're seeing a different side to him 15 years beyond that, and listen, when you do, again, I'm not old, I'm only 44, but I'm old enough in my life, approaching middle age, where I have regrets, even at this age, and things that I think about and things that I wish, and, all that kind of stuff, right? So to be at that, to be at that age and looking back at all the adventures he's had and all the people he's met and, and all that kind of stuff, it's a fascinating character study that I quite enjoyed looking at. And it makes sense to be able to go that route if you want to do another Indiana Jones movie, because there's only so much you can have the character do before it's just totally not believable anymore, right? So I was fine with where Indy was. I was fine with how he was treated. I was fine with how he was feeling. Obviously, with the death of Mutt and the separation with Marion. That scene on the boat with Phoebe Waller-Bridge's Helena, and that's a great moment, and it's a pivotal moment in Helena's arc as well, and her character. So let's talk about Helena, because Helena has been the sort of the object of many culture war channels, disdain for a very, very long time, and woke this, fuck Phoebe Waller-Bridge, can't stand her. It's all because of Kathleen Kennedy, and woke this and woke that and woke this and woke that. There was even a rumor out there that there was an ending that they apparently scrapped and had to reshoot, of course, because the ending was that Harrison Ford dies in the past, erasing him in the future, and Phoebe Waller-Bridge takes over as the new Indiana Jones, and we see these clips of her in all the previous Indiana Jones movies, and it's like, oh, for God's sakes. James Mangold came out and said that's absolutely not true. That was never an ending. We didn't write that. Nobody takes over for anybody. Nobody dons the hat but Harrison Ford and all that kind of stuff. But of course, that's not good enough for people that buy into this, because all they have to say is then, listen, they reshot the ending. That was the ending, but they reshot it because they knew that all of us were getting angry. So that's why they reshot it. Okay. Even though the director of the movie has come out and said, no, I don't know what crack you're smoking, but that's not, he didn't actually say that. But I think I would have been okay if he said that. I understand that there's a lot of people that watch and listen to these types of leaks, unsubstantiated, unproven, and get caught up into it and all that kind of stuff. I understand that. And all it takes is for one of these channels to be right once, right? To be right once. And then there's a little bit of credence to maybe everything they say, right? Personally, I feel that this was a rumor that was synthetically created just to get you to hate the fucking movie. Because that's where we are nowadays in the culture war in entertainment. That's where we are. People hate on movies months and years before they're released. And rumors come out and maybe some are true and some aren't and all this kind of stuff. And there's just no basis for it. So I tend to side with James Mangold on this and think that was never the issue, never the case. They did do reshoots, but that wasn't what they were reshooting. Although, of course, because we can't prove that, everybody that believes that goes, oh yeah, well they're just saying that. Okay, you can believe what you want, but I don't believe that. But this is where we are now in the world. So Helena, Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character, was hated on before the movie was even released. I got to tell you, I didn't mind her character. I didn't love her character, but I didn't mind it. She does her character comes across as, confident, sort of a bit of a bitch, kind of a bit of an asshole. But that's part of her character, right? She's somebody that is selfish. She's very smart. Okay. She's educated, Oxford educated, has a degree, I think, in archaeology, if I'm not mistaken. Her father was, oh God, I forget the character's name now, but Toby, what's his face, played him. That was her father. So she learned a lot from her father. It makes sense. It's properly motivated that she would have this knowledge and know these things immediately as we're introduced to her. It makes total sense. I mean, she's not a Mary Sue or a know-it-all. I mean, it makes perfect sense, 100%. And she sort of, in some ways, who Indiana Jones, although Indiana Jones, I think, was less selfish, she was there's parallels to who she is at this point and who Indiana Jones used to be, right? And that was kind of fascinating. But she has an arc as well. And, I didn't have any issues with, I didn't think she treated him poorly or anything like that, or, she was stealing the stage. I didn't feel that way at all. You can't have an older woman. Look, could you have Marion there? Sure. But you can't he's always has a female companion. You can't have an older woman there on the adventure with him, because we're supposed to have him get back to Marion, right? It makes sense that you would have a younger person who can help to balance it out, right? You have a 79-year-old actor help to balance the believability out, and also who's somebody that doesn't necessarily appreciate Indiana Jones in the beginning and his experience and his knowledge and his wisdom, but then by the end of the movie really does. Helena has an arc, and it really begins to change. We see that change on the boat. When, she says, so what would you do, or where would you go, if you could go back in time? And Harrison Ford has that great moment, great acting, great performance when he talks about how he'd warned Mutt not to enlist, because he was going to die, and that it would affect him and Marion and, the marriage and all that. Oh my God, I had a lump in my throat, like just powerful moment. And you could see Helena's face. You could see her going, oh my God. Like there was you can see the beginning of the change for her, that her arc had hit a peak at that point, and now we're coming down in terms of where she's going to be by the end of the movie. And I thought that was one of my favorite scenes in the whole film, because at that point, seeing her face and seeing her sort of concede to the emotion of the moment lets you know that she does have a heart. She's not an asshole, even though she, kind of pretends to be or tries to be, because she's, selfish in a lot of ways. She wants the money, the fortune and glory and all that kind of stuff. She really realizes, this is a guy that's been through this. This is a guy that's been through shit, that's seen this shit, that knows this shit. Holy shit. and there's sort of there's that change, right? Really like that. Really, really like that. I thought the action overall in the movie was spectacular. Yes, of course, there's CG, there's green screen, but I thought it was way better than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. There was something about the cinematography and the color grading and timing in Skull that was too bright and saturated, and there was just something about it I didn't like. Even though the DP is what's his face there, Kaminsky, I forget his last name, one of the great legendary DPs in history. There was just something about the color grading and timing of that movie I just still can't gel with. But Destiny was fine. It was much better, looked more like Indiana Jones, and I quite enjoyed that. So when it comes to Harrison Ford's Indiana Jones and Phoebe Waller-Bridge's Helena Shaw, I didn't have any issues. This whole idea that, Helena Shaw was a woke character and that she upstaged Indiana Jones and stole his thunder and all that kind of stuff, I just categorically disagree with that. I think that really stems from one thing that happens at the end of the movie, which we will talk about, which I still don't agree with it being some, kind of upstaging of Indiana Jones. But I really think that idea or that complaint about her character probably stems from that. But I'm sorry, I just don't agree with that. If this was a woke movie and her character was woke bullshit, I'd tell you. I'd be like, no, it's fucking bullshit. It's nonsense. I'm sorry, I just don't agree with it. I mean, if it wasn't for Indiana Jones, Helena Shaw would still be in that tomb trying to get through those fucking doors. It was Indiana Jones's knowledge and wisdom and experience that got them out of there. She didn't know what the fuck to do. She was totally out of her element and completely inexperienced. It was Indiana Jones that, his decisions and his knowledge and his wisdom that pretty much drove that entire sequence, and got them out of there pretty much unscathed. Well, he got shot and, was dragged out of there. But I'm just saying, it was him it was his knowledge and his experience. I mean, he's the one that came up with the idea to burn was it wax or whatever the hell it was, around that device and expose what was inside, right? You know what I'm saying? And find that's all Indiana Jones. That's not Helena Shaw. I mean, there's so many decisions that Indiana Jones makes in this movie while with Helena Shaw that if it wasn't for Indiana Jones, she'd be fucked. She'd be fucked. She wouldn't know what to do, right? That doesn't mean she's not competent and strong and capable, but it's his knowledge and wisdom and experience that gets her out of those types of situations. So, yeah, I just don't agree that she was just upstaging him at every corner and every moment. I just don't agree with that. So let's talk about Teddy for a moment here. Teddy, I could take him early. I don't think you necessarily needed him in the movie. He was fine, and that's not a knock on the kid. Talented actor, did a great job. I just didn't. I think you could have had it a Helena Indy thing, and it would have been fine. I don't think we would necessarily lose anything. In regards to Sala, let's talk about Sala. Indy, fucking love the cameo of Sala. I think it was brilliantly done, brilliantly introduced. I love that we got to see him one last time at the end of the movie as well. And I just love when he's like, he's looking at the TV, and then that guy's like, it's you, and then all of a sudden, that nice, Indiana Jones punch sound, and he's like, sorry, I'm late, Indy. And it's just like, oh my God, I love it. I love it. I love it. It's absolutely fantastic. And it just was so good. It was so good. And it's so cool. So he was brought over to the US. He's a New York cab driver, trying to make ends meet for his family and, his grandkids and all that kind of stuff. It was so good. It was so good. And I loved at the ending there too. I don't know the lyrics, but at the ending when it's just Marion and Indy in the kitchen, you hear Sala in the hallway outside going, for he is a 45 about it. That thing he was singing, towards the end of Raiders after Marion gave him those 3 kisses, right? He was all like, for she is, he was all, that's what he begins to sing outside in the hall. I picked up on that, as most of us fans probably did. And I was like, that's nice. Total fan service, completely unnecessary. You didn't have to have him singing anything. But that was nice. That was a nice touch. That was a nice touch. I really, really like that. So I think Sala's cameo was fantastic. It wasn't too much. It wasn't too little. I thought it was great. I thought it was really, really good. So I really enjoyed that. And I also liked the flashback when we got to see a young Helena and a younger Indiana Jones from where he is now, but not quite as young as he was, say, in 1944, right? Like at the beginning of the movie. I thought the de-aging there was really good. Again, like good enough, like really good enough where I'm just like, yep, I'm in, I buy it. I totally buy it. I mean, obviously, yes, you can tell, but being able to tell doesn't mean it's shit. Right? Like there's levels, there's degrees. Do you know what I mean? And I thought this de-aging was really good, like really good, as I've mentioned. That was a cool scene to see as well. Felt like, old school Indiana Jones as well. So, Mads Mikkelsen. I mean, I thought he's a great actor anyway. And I thought he was a good villain. I didn't find him as compelling as, say, like Belloc or even Molaram. But Molaram is like that's like a cult, you know what I mean? And that's like really theatrical and, all that kind of stuff. But I found him good. He was good. He was I enjoyed him more than I did Cate Blanchett's villain in Crystal Skull. And I would put him on par, maybe even a little more villainous than maybe Donovan in Last Crusade. But I liked him. I wish we could have got maybe a little more with him, a little more villain things with him. I mean, not like cartoon stuff where he's there going, nothing, I don't need a cackle, but just, he was good and good enough that I think we could have had maybe a little more with him. I did think the movie was a little long. I did think that. I think you probably could have shaved about 15, 20 minutes off of it. Yes, I think you could have done that. But it wasn't like, exhaustingly long. It was like, holy fuck. Jesus. I mean, for me anyway, it wasn't. But yeah, I agree with that. For some people have said that's a little long. Yeah, I could agree with that. Shave 15, 20 minutes off maybe. But yeah, I mean, again, the action, the set sequences, really great. Let's talk about the ending now and the big swing that they took. So for me, it worked, but it didn't work immediately. It was a big swing where I was like, oh, okay. Okay, we're going here. Okay, all right. Okay, let's see how this works. You know what I mean? And that, of course, is the Siege of Syracuse, I believe it's called, and how Archimedes, he did. I mean, obviously, all MacGuffins in Indiana Jones films are based on real things. But obviously the lore, the mythology, the rumors, that surround these things are what Indiana Jones leans into. And so obviously, there's no evidence that the actual dial, made time travel possible. But there were rumors, like that, that it was a device that was sort of, about that. That was one interpretation. And I thought it was really cool to lean into that. But extra cool that you find out that, yeah, it does make time travel possible, but only to one point in time and one location, the Siege of Syracuse. And that was done on purpose by Archimedes, which I thought was a really, really cool thing. And I just thought it was so cool seeing all these, these planes fly over and, the Romans are like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? And the arrows are, flying up and it was such a nice contrast. It was a really cool, interesting contrast, I should say, that is either going to work for some people or it's not going to work for some people. I think some people are going to be okay with it over time, but, on subsequent watches. But yeah, no, I bought into it. I thought it was interesting. The longer the scene lasted, the longer I was like, okay, sure. Why not? Right? It's not the craziest thing that's happened in an Indiana Jones movie, is it? I don't know. I don't think so. But anyway, so after the battle, Mads Mikkelsen's character's dead. The villains have lost. And Helena and Indiana Jones, of course, have parachuted out of the plane to the ground. And they meet Archimedes. And it's like, oh my God, holy fuck, right? What a moment that Indiana Jones has. And this is the moment here that I think a lot of people, call foul and woke nonsense. Oh God. Okay. But when we look at Indiana Jones and where he is in his life at this point, and for an archaeologist, okay, this is like heaven to an archaeologist. He's studied this for decades. He's, knows all about this, and he's always wanted to see this. I mean, he even says it in the movie, I've been looking for this all my life, and it's like, this is an archaeologist's heaven. And that's even more powerful. That's made even more powerful. The experience that Indiana Jones is going through is made even more powerful with the fact that he believes there's nothing for him back home. Marion's gone. I mean, she's not dead, but she's separated. She's gone. Mutt is gone. He's dead. He's retired. He's sad. He doesn't know what he's going to do with his retirement, his life. And he's just, there's nothing for him there. This is like heaven. Oh my God. Do you know what I mean? Oh my God. It's Helena, ironically, it's Helena that's like, what are you doing? What do you mean? Because of her arc and the things she's begun to learn. The Helena at the beginning of the movie might have left him there. Do you know what I mean? Might have left him there. But the things she's learned from him and the wisdom that she's gained from him, even within this journey that she's been on with Indiana Jones, has made her realize you can't stay here. Like, you can't do this. But the power of this environment, the power of this new reality, the power that has hit Indiana Jones, he's like, I just want to stay here. I just want to stay here. This is heaven to an archaeologist. Do you understand? This is heaven to an archaeologist, and it's like, oh my God. And especially when there's nothing for him back there, which isn't true, which is not true, but it's what he feels. It's genuinely what he feels. And he goes, of course, back and forth with, they're trying to communicate with Archimedes and speak the language and all that kind of stuff. And Helena just turns around and socks Indiana Jones in the jaw. And it's that moment that I think a lot of people go, oh, come on. So Indiana Jones doesn't get out of it? Oh, he needs Helena's help. Yes, because this is an Indiana Jones at the end of his life. This is a in the movie 70-year-old Indiana Jones. Okay, 80 in real life, but 70-year-old Indiana Jones. Look where the character is. Look what the character's been through. Why is he feeling that way? This is euphoric to him. It's sad, it's moving, it's emotional, but it's euphoric to him. He's not thinking clearly. He's caught up in this moment, very much like he was when he was trying to get the Holy Grail. Indiana, let it go. Do you know what I mean? He's caught up in this moment. And it's, like I said, it's made even more powerful because he thinks he doesn't have anything back there. When he looks up to his father, he realizes, my dad, I've got my dad, right? But now, what does he have? Marion's gone, separated, but she's gone. Mutt's gone. His dad's gone, which would make sense because he's 70. But he's retired. I mean, he's got nobody. I mean, you could say Salah, I guess, but you know what I'm trying to say, right? So the fact that she turned around and socked, I mean, could they have figured out a different way to, appease all those that are going to go, oh, woke. Yeah, maybe. But it's not like it's not properly motivated. It's not like it makes no sense. Oh, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. That's not true at all. You might not agree with it. You might have wished they would have done it maybe a bit differently, but it makes sense. It makes sense. Would you have felt the same way if it was Salah that was there that turned around and, socked him? Think about that. What's the difference? Replace Helena with Salah. Probably not. You'd probably be okay with it. Right? My issue with this whole idea that Helena, punching Indiana Jones in the face is woke because, she didn't let him get out of it himself. He's Indiana Jones. He doesn't need her help. He should have been able to get out of that situation himself and save her instead or something like that, right? Sure. They could have written it that way. but it's not like the way it's written makes no sense. It's properly motivated. When you think about Helena's arc, where she began, what she's learned through her journey, through her experience with Indiana Jones and how he's helped her get out of fucking jams, and where she is now, it makes sense. Now, there's a number of ways they could have gone about it, but it's not like it's not properly motivated. It does make sense. Right? And he's too caught up in the euphoric nature of heaven. He thinks there's nothing there for him anymore. This is 70-year-old Indiana Jones. This isn't the Raiders Indiana Jones. It's not the Temple Indiana Jones. It's not the Last Crusade Indiana Jones. It's not even the Crystal Skull Indiana Jones. This is a very different Indiana Jones. And like I said at the beginning of this video, you are more than welcome to say, not my Indiana Jones. To me, it's Raiders, Temple, and Last Crusade. I want to remember Indiana Jones as the swashbuckling young adventure guy who, doesn't need, help or, whatever the case is. Fine. And you're well within your right to feel that way. And I understand that. I really do. I want you to know I do understand that. This film and where we take the story isn't for everybody. It can be tough, sometimes to see a hero that, you're used to seeing strong, not so strong anymore. And, but when you look at the movie through a different lens, when you take the woke lens off and you look at the character arcs and you look at what's going on in the story, it's all properly motivated. It's not woke. We got to stop throwing that word around so loosely because it doesn't mean anything anymore. You want to know what would have been woke? You want to know what would have been woke? What would have been woke is if Helena turned around. I'm going to the extreme to make a point. But if she had turned around, punched Indiana Jones in the face, he fell to the ground, he's unconscious. She takes off his hat, puts the hat on, takes the jacket, puts the jacket on and says, now you're going to have to deal with me, Indiana Jane. And it's like, whoa. I mean, now that's woke, right? Right? You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, what? That it doesn't make any sense, right? It doesn't make any sense. But what we have right now makes sense. He's at a different stage in his life, and it's not the first time that he's felt euphoric and got caught up in the moment with shit. You know what I'm saying? So, to me, I didn't have any issues with it. Like, in terms of it being properly motivated. Now, let's talk about the ending. I love that Marion was there. I love that she came back in. I love that they had that moment. I would have had the moment breathe a little longer. Now, I mean, the movie's already 2.5 hours. So I would have maybe cut some things down in the middle of the movie so I could extend that time with Marion and Indiana Jones. I would have loved to have seen a little more with them. It was very cute and very sweet, and you can tell that she still loves him very much, and that she, had to come over and had to make sure he was okay, because obviously Helena got in touch with her and was like, you need to, you know what I mean? And she came over, and that moment in the kitchen doing, the mirroring of the moment from Raiders was really sweet and really cute, and obviously total fan service for us fans, but it works. It makes sense. It makes sense they would do that. I wasn't like, oh, come on. No, it makes sense. It makes sense. And it was very cute and very sweet. I just wanted a little more time with them. Do you know what I mean? Like it felt just a little maybe abrupt. The ending felt kind of like, oh, and that's it. Okay. You know what I'm saying? I would have liked to have stayed with them just a little longer. I mean, obviously there were rumors that there was an early draft of a script where Marion is actually on the adventure with Indy. That would have been interesting. Got to admit, that would have been interesting. I would have liked to have read that. But I would have liked to have seen just a little more here with them. I would have had them have their moment in the kitchen and maybe have them somehow make their way to the couch. Obviously, it's got to make sense. But they make their way to the couch. They sit down. She's maybe in his arms, or not like overdone, but maybe she's got her head on his chest or something, and he's sitting there, and there's a conversation, and we're slowly pushing in. We're pushing in, and we see them talking, and you hear, the Marion theme, and we're pushing in. And then maybe because maybe the camera would be on a jib on some track or something, or maybe it's a telescopic arm. and we're pushing in, and then we kind of go over them a little bit, and we still hear them talking, and we move over to the window, and we see the hat hanging there, on the line, and nobody reaches to grab it. It's just there, and we close on that. Or the hat's hanging on a coat rack or something, or it's on the table or whatever. It doesn't have to be outside, but just to have a little more time with Indy and Marion, that's what I would. Now, maybe they did shoot more. I don't know. I wanted a little more with Indy and Marion. So I will say that. It did feel a little abrupt. Now, again, I've only seen the movie once. I watch it again and maybe I'll feel a bit differently. But these are my, initial first impression thoughts of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. And I liked it. I'd give it like a solid 7 out of 10. I thought it was good. Like I thought it was fine. It's exactly what I said I thought it was going to be, which is, it's fine. I think it's as good as it could have been. Was it unnecessary? Yeah, it was. Did they need to make this? No, they didn't. Did it really add anything? No, not really. It was exactly what I thought it was. It's like, does AC/DC need to tour again? No. Are they going to, add anything if they don't? Or are we going to miss anything if they don't? I mean, no. They're legends. The legacy is secure. But you're going to go. Why? Nostalgia. They're legends. Got to see them one last time. And you hope the show is good. And I'm happy to report, I think the show's good. I think it's a good show. And I didn't love the Dial of Destiny, but I thought it was fine. And when I say fine, I don't mean, no, that's fine. No, I mean like how it used to be, back in, the old days, before, we entered the hyperbolic entertainment space where shit's got to be either a 10 out of 10 or it's dog shit. And, an 8 out of 10 movie is like, ooh, what happened? It's like, what do you mean? It's a good score, 8 out of 10. I'd give this a solid 7.5. I thought it was fine. You know what I mean? And I'm judging it based on the reality and the confines of the story they're telling. Not that this should have been Raiders. I think the story they told was told well. And I'm okay that it's a sadder tale, as some people feel that there's not enough joy or that it's sad or something. And I'm like, I understand what they're saying, but I think we need to have more context and nuance to the discussion because I bought into it. And I think those plot points were properly motivated and it made sense to me. So overall, I enjoyed the movie and I don't think it's woke at all. Now, you might feel differently because you're caught up in that and you feel that the slightest, strong female or gay couple, I don't know, you think that's woke. To me, that's not what woke means. And I didn't find Helena's character woke. Didn't find it woke at all. And I would tell you if I thought it was woke. I would tell you that 100%. I think having a younger character, and he usually has a female, helped to balance things out and only helped to make his role at 70 in the movie, Indiana Jones 70 movie, 80 in real life, but more believable and make more sense. So overall, guys, like I said, I thought it was fine. Not my favorite. The original 3 are still the best, but this is a nice companion piece. It's a nice kind of what if, and kind of like, oh, this is kind of cool, and I look forward to watching it again. I'm sure there's a bunch of things I'm going to think about after this movie. I'm done this video that I'll want to add, but I think I've sort of hit the major beats here anyway. But anyways, folks, my name's Dave McRae. Comment below and let me know your thoughts. Keep it civil. Even if if you thought the movie was woke and you're one of these people that's like, no, it's woke, hot garbage, you're allowed to express that, but keep it civil. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. Don't be a dick in the comment section. Okay. And if your comment is not there, it's probably not because I removed it. It's probably because YouTube's picked up on some sort of wording you've put in there and put it into my spam folder. Okay. I've been accused of deleting comments. I don't delete comments unless there's something like really racist or something like that. But YouTube does have their algorithms that will pick up on certain words and that will shift them over to the spam folder. So just keep it civil, keep it legit. You can express your, your feelings or your distaste or your love or joy or your hatred or whatever, but do it in civil ways. I would like to think we're all adults here and I'm not dealing with fucking children with the IQ of a donut. But you know what? Sometimes, hey, it is the internet. My name's Dave McRae. If you want to follow me on social media, you can. There are my links right there. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. All my links are in the description. Check them out until your heart's content. And when your heart is content, check them out again. That's going to do it for me. In the meantime and in between time, I will talk to you soon. Cheers.